Welcome to another episode of Jude the Podcast. I'm your host, Stacy Jude. With me in the studio is David Jude, my other half.
Yeah.
Maybe better half.
No.
David Jude, CLI. That stands for Certified Legal Investigator. Sounds a little bit better than the PI because we're not into this cheating spouses thing.
Yeah.
So today...
Yeah. Great introduction, by the way.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
I'm feeling a little witty sassy tonight. Got me some Italian dinner at Frank and Dino's, so I'm feeling pretty good.
That was a good dinner.
It was. Okay, so we're going to talk about what has mesmerized the world right now, and it's this Lindsay Clancy trial and case. I'll be the first to tell you, I knew nothing about this at all. I guess where I've kind of chosen not to watch TV and engage in all this stuff because it's always so negative. Apparently I missed this whenever this happened, however many, moons ago. But apparently she's been on trial, and all I can see on my social media Facebook feed and everywhere is all these TikTok and conspiracy theorists talking about her innocence or lack of innocence or her guilt or whatever.
Yeah.
And it really started a great conversation between David and I about the holes in the case. So, for example, previous cases, like the Casey Anthony case, we knew she would not have a conviction because they failed to prove beyond a reasonable doubt. And so it's really interesting because everybody's so polarized about this case on if she did it, if she didn't do it, what happened, the discrepancies, whatever. We just thought we'd dive in a little bit and talk about it in a brief bird's eye view, I would say, 30,000 feet, because I really don't know anything about this case. So it'd be kind of neat because I'd make a great juror. But as a nurse, I see lots of problems that are right off the bat that I think the prosecution would have a difficulty time proving beyond a reasonable doubt their case. So with that, I'll kind of take it over to you, or we can do a synopsis of what supposedly happened and where we're starting from.
Yeah. So we're not really here to say whether we think she's guilty or innocent, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
So, my thought is I'm going to give my insights as a criminal defense investigator on the topics that you're going to ask. So I'll say I'm not rehearsed or studied in this.
Oh no, I just drug him over here and said, let's go.
Yeah. So we're going to off the cuff have a discussion about this case from the perspective of my work as a criminal defense investigator.
Correct.
Okay. Yeah.
So kind of to get started a little bit, like I said, I know really nothing about this case. It's just been interesting. I've had a lot of patients and clients kind of come in and talk about it for me as a nurse. I'm sure David's had some people questioning it as well. But the synopsis kind of the case is Lindsay Clancy, who's 36 years old, was a former labor and delivery nurse at Mass General, supposedly allegedly strangled her 3 children with exercise bands in the family basement, cut her wrists, then jumped from a window, leaving her paralyzed from the waist down. So she got charged with 3 counts of first-degree murder, obviously, mandatory life without parole if she's convicted. Her plea, and I think it's in Massachusetts. It's kind of interesting because I don't know exactly the law, so I'm kind of winging off the cuff here. The plea is not guilty, but via insanity or a lack of criminal responsibility to type a defense. They're not denying that she didn't do it, which is interesting. So supposedly it's not a whodunit. It's just what will justice look like for her. So I think they have the option of acquittal, or the guilt by insanity, or not guilty but due to reason of insanity, or just plain guilty, is I think their options to choose from.
Yeah, so there's a few things there. So for our format, I'm just going to interrupt and chime in on.
You're good because I have no clue.
Yeah. So you said a key word up front, which is allegedly, and we should spend a minute and talk a little bit about what that means, and then come back to the plea. And so I'm not familiar with Massachusetts law. I'm going to apply that to us here in Kentucky and what some of this would look like. And also I'll say too, neither one of us are attorneys. And so we don't have the attorney perspective here. We just have what our careers have given us. So that's my disclaimers for it. But
big disclaimers. Yeah.
Big disclaimers.
This is for entertainment purposes only.
So let's say, go back to allegedly. And that's a big word. And so what happens in criminal cases is a lot of assumptions are made, and the facts have to come out in court, and that's the important part. And neither side likes to give facts in front of trial, but at the same time, they also do like to give facts in front of trial, because on whichever side that you're going to be through this podcast, whether you're going to be on the government side, the prosecution side, or the defense team side, both are trying to influence what the jury pool is going to understand and to know. And so our court system is set up to say, in theory, you're innocent until proven guilty. And the word allegedly is very important, because no matter what the investigation has shown up until this point, being proved guilty is different than whatever is happening in the media. So that first thing is the word allegedly is a big deal. So, yeah, you're looking at me.
I know I'm a little confused. Why I'm not sure I'm following. So, what I see, is you've got the charges that happen, but how did we get to the charges? And so, in your career, I've seen some really weird stuff go down. So, for example, grand jury, I don't know if you want to talk about that, things stand out to me that I'd want to see the whole case. And we've talked about this on other podcasts is, the prosecution's going to hold their little cards, and then so is the defense, and nobody wants to share their discovery until they have to, kind of thing. And as a layman, I always thought it was, here's all the crap, best man wins. Like, good luck with your defense. And it's not that way.
It's not that way. So to try to clarify it, allegedly, what we know as, and let's call ourselves potential jurors at this point, what we know is what has come out on the citation, the charging document through the grand jury. And those things say that this person committed this crime. Now, on the defense side is going to say, hang on a second. It's not that clear cut. And so allegedly then becomes the part to say, well, the government has said, we believe this has happened. Okay. And the defense team saying, we don't. Okay. And it creates this thing to say, hey, it has to be proven before we get there. Right. So at this point, allegedly.
So how does it get past the grand jury? Do they just feel that there's enough evidence to go to trial, or how does that work?
So in Kentucky, oh boy, grand jury is an interesting thing. Grand jury is as informal as sitting at the morning breakfast table and having a quick conversation, and sometimes the most complex, difficult murder cases get 3 or 4 minutes in front of a grand jury. And it's one-sided. It's where the government comes in with their main witness, usually the case officer, the detective, and they'll spend 2, 3, 4, 5 minutes, let's just say 10 minutes, giving an informal presentation to a panel, which is the grand jury. And sometimes there's questions, sometimes there's not.
Are they allowed to ask questions and interrupt? Mm-hmm. Or
they are allowed to ask questions. Generally, the prosecuting attorney, here we call it the Commonwealth attorney, will lead the questioning. Okay. The case officer or detective will answer the questions and give a really brief synopsis of the case. The point of grand jury is to say there is probable cause to bring these charges. And probable cause is saying that a reasonable person would say there's enough here to believe that this person committed the crime. And so, again, it's very informal. When you get into it, you can quickly see how easy it is to say whatever you want to say in a grand jury environment. And then, of course, the jury is going to vote however they vote. So there's no rebuttal witnesses. There's no defense witnesses, typically, although I have testified as a defense witness in grand jury. So really it's just a one-sided thing, very informal.
So what's the no true bill? I've heard that term. I don't know what that means.
Yeah, so out of a grand jury, you have two options. An indictment, which says we believe there's enough here to bring these charges. It's not guilt or innocence. It's just saying we believe there's enough here to bring charges.
Oh, okay.
That's an indictment.
Okay.
Right? On the flip side of that, no true bill says we don't think there's enough here to bring criminal charges. So
if they do that, does that mean that if you get more junk on them, you can always bring that back to the grand jury again, or does that mean it's over?
So you're thinking about hiring a private investigator, huh? Think knowledge, experience, and trust. Think DPJ Consulting. Listen, we're the folks you want on your team. Whether it's a criminal matter, corporate, or administrative issue, or maybe something more personal, you need to make the right choice for you. Our house of expertise at DPJ Consulting can help you with investigations, and that can mean a whole lot of different things. Pre-employment background checks, personal VIP security, and so much more. Check us out at dpjconsulting.com. Follow us on all of our social media platforms, or give us a call at 855-TEAM-DPJ. That's 855-TEAM-DPJ. Give us a call. It costs nothing to talk. It costs you everything if we don't. You could bring it back to the grand jury, I believe.
Okay.
That's more of a legal question, but you can bring it back to the grand jury, I believe. Okay. I don't know that it ever does that, right? So in theory,
no, I was going to say I very rarely ever hear of this no true bill, so I'm sure they get indicted.
In theory, the government is bringing their evidence to the grand jury to say we have enough evidence to bring these charges.
Oh, that makes sense. Yeah, so they're not going to waste everybody's time. Got it.
Right.
Okay.
If they don't have enough evidence, they shouldn't be at grand jury anyway. So that's the first part of that. And then second, we talked about the plea. Well, in Kentucky at least, and I think beyond our borders of Kentucky, you have to plead not guilty. So
people don't understand that.
No, your first court appearance by statute, by law, is a not guilty plea for felonies. So you can come in with a violation or a misdemeanor and plead guilty, but for felonies, you're required by statute to plead not guilty.
So why is that?
To ensure that you have counsel to represent you and that your rights are being upheld, and really to ensure fairness, which is what we've been saying our job
has been
as defense investigators. That's what our job is, to ensure fairness. So, but now the media always makes their big play of it, right? Delbert went to court today and he pled not guilty, and social media goes ape shit nuts because not guilty. Well, they're required by statute to plead not guilty on the first ones. Now, after the first hearing or arraignment, then you can do whatever. But
so is it like that? Is it like that every state, or is it just?
I think
are we only talking about Kentucky, that it could be completely a wackadoo up in Massachusetts?
I can speak to Kentucky for sure. I feel pretty certain, without having the stats, I feel pretty certain that every state's that way.
Okay. All right. Well, let's kind of get all up into this.
Yeah.
And so for us, you know, like I said, all I've seen is some of the hee-hawing on social media talking about what is done. As far as the really overview, I haven't seen any court testimony. I haven't seen anything other than the snippets, which you obviously know in social media is going to be marketed towards a certain narrative. And, you know, I can't even say that maybe both sides may be playing into that as well, you know, to where you really get sympathy votes or what?
I think they are, you know, because over the last week, 2 weeks, we're seeing this attention being brought to this case, right? Like all the things we're getting ready to talk
insane.
about.
Yeah.
Well, now on social media, I'm starting to see the other side of it, to say, you know, all these people are now out in support of a baby killer, a child killer.
Yeah.
She admitted it. She did. So there's also now coming the pendulum's kind of swinging the other way with both sides being vocal on social media.
Yeah. So originally what got my attention, I started paying attention. And of course, I'm a woman that has had postpartum depression. Honestly, it was a very big fear for me, postpartum, that I remember even asking in the hospital. I was scared to death. I remember in nursing school them talking about the psychosis story. And one of the instructors had a friend that literally locked herself in a room because she thought spiders were all over her baby and she wanted to get them off or whatever. And so I always was fearful with the history of my family with mental illness, that was going to be an issue for us. And, I kind of feel for this girl. I mean, it doesn't erase if she killed her kids, or whatever, but I do feel for her because for me, it was such a concern because of my family history that there was going to be issues. And I remember bringing it up to the nurses before we went home and even asked, hey, how do I know what is the postpartum depression? How do I know it's going into psychosis, or how would I know these things? Because as a new mom, the medical knowledge you learn in school goes out the window once you as a patient, right? We make terrible patients. But I can remember she just flippantly said, it's the baby blues. If you had it, or if you were going to have them, you would already have them by now, because I was in the hospital 3 days after my C-section. And she blew me off. I mean, it was just kind of like, you'd already have the baby blues if you did. Well, guess what? I had her in September, and I can remember they hit around November, and they lasted till June. And, I was just depressed. I mean, it was no big deal. But as a female, I can see where some of this weird case is. And then, of course, obviously, when I hit premenopause, my hormones have went insane. I had very scary thoughts. I sought counseling. So to me, it kind of hits home that it's very easy for people to judge and look at, well, this is crazy, when if you're clouded and you don't know what's going on, it's a different world. We've had multiple friends that have had to, see help, and their stories are kind of the same, that it's easy to judge until you're in that situation. So this kind of hit home for me and got me paying attention. But in what I saw was everybody was in support of her. And like you're saying now, I only noticed it about the last 3 days, is it's all swinging back. Like and it's literally labeling everybody that's questioning, which there's no problem with questioning, because that's the whole point, is you want to unturn or overturn every stone until you've ruled everything out. So if you have questions, that's great. There should be an easy answer for that.
So from the legal point of view for these cases, there's a difference. There's different levels of murder, if you will, for lack of a better term, and not getting into all the official things. But, you have cold-blooded, hard, intentional, murder type of thing. And then there's also different circumstances that can come into play to say, okay, it's not that kind of murder, it's kind of this kind of murder. And I may not be making sense.
Really
I'm just
confusing.
saying there's tiers, if you will, to homicide and to death. How much responsibility is actually for the defendant, if any, or all of it. So these legal teams, the government's coming in to say, she intentionally took this action, right? Mm-hmm. And so it's the maximum. And the defense team's coming in to say, well, she may have taken those actions, but there's other circumstances at play that have to be considered to say it's not the top level. It's not like this
methodical evil.
And it is heinous. It's awful. It's all those things, but there's some reasoning behind it. And so again, the government's coming in. Huh?
That'd be tough to be a juror. I mean, that's because it's very confusing.
Incredibly tough to be a juror. And so the government's coming in to say, we're going to nail this person to the wall. And the defense team's coming in there to say, well, they may be found guilty, but the jury should consider these other factors, okay, right? And so a victory to the defense team is a lessening of
the charge
or the responsibility. Let's call it responsibility, okay, right? So when the jury gets jury instructions on multiple different charges, they can consider, which is what's kind of coming out in now. What that's speaking to is how much responsibility, how much culpability is the jury going to assign to the defendant.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's see. What else can we? I'm starting to get clouded because it's so much information.
It's a lot of information. So, I mean.
Okay. So the prosecution's case, it said that she pretty much acted intentionally, rationally, and swiftly. Obviously, the clips that are all over social media is everybody talking and, about her mental stability. I think she was on 13 medications, which I think as a nurse just shakes me to my core. I see this in my practice. I see that, you can pull a Casper or, when you medication reconcile, all the medicines are supposed to pull into this electronic medical record. And for example, I've had patients that have been on 3 pages of medicines that I'm scrolling and scrolling thinking, oh my God, how are these not all interacting? And so to me, to be on 13 different medications, I am just astounded. And I'm not surprised that this happened. That was the biggest thing that started with me, is that she sought help so many times and kept getting turned away, which that's our system. I mean, that's what it is.
So from the criminal defense investigator, there's 2 different pieces here that are valuable to that. So to get this introduced, I would assume this is not part of the government's presentation. The government's presentation is this crime happened in this manner, and
correct.
This is the result.
Yeah, they don't want to go that she's nuts.
Sure. So on the other side, the defense team, this is where the criminal defense investigator comes into play. The defense investigators to look at this situation and say, well, hang on, do we have all the facts? Do we even know what happened? What's going on here, right? There's a lot to consider beyond just the physical action of the crime. And a lot of people aren't comfortable with that, and they don't like it until their family needs it, right? And
I try to think, if you put yourself in this situation, you would hope that you would be able to get a fair trial, and that you would look at every avenue other than just going in a quick route. Now, you have seen this, and I don't know if you want to talk about it or not. You have seen this in your career, that you've been on both sides of the career, both sides of the defense and prosecution side. But you see a lot of times, and I don't want to be anti-whatever, that an assumption is made, and it could be from the 911 call of, hey, this person killed her kids, and there's some bias. There's bias that's already has started, and it makes a very simple closure to the case because everybody just assumes something instead of really looking at all aspects. Does that make sense? I'm trying to tiptoe a little bit.
Yeah.
A little.
Well, you're right. And let me finish up a thought on the defense team. Okay. So of the criminal defense investigator, I would imagine in most of our cases, especially these serious ones, and again, by statute, you're required to have really a fact investigator, which is most often where I'm at. And then there's a thing called a mitigation specialist, which I do get into that world just a little bit. And so the fact investigator is looking at the case, the case itself. What's the facts of the case? And what's that look like? And then the mitigation specialist is looking at the defendant as a person to say, what's happening with the person? And so already we've talked about all the different medications and asking for help. That to me seems like it's coming from the mitigation side to say, hang on a second, there's a lot going on with this person that you need to look at. And then back to your bias point, you're certainly correct. The way that this is my opinion based on my over 30 years of doing criminal investigation work, is that the minute that the 911 phone rings, there is something reported to a dispatcher, telecommunicator, which is then broadcast out to the police and to everyone else that's coming. And so at that moment, my opinion is that biases start to set in to say, can you respond to 1234 Johnson Road for a murder of this? And that word murder already puts it into a perspective that a criminal act has occurred. And so biases do set in very early. And we've had a couple of cases where I think biases have set in. We've also worked a very difficult case of a mother who was charged with killing her baby. And that started off very similar to say this is and I don't want to do the details, but super heinous and awful. And it was, and it is. But there were other levels of culpability between all the parties involved that needed to be considered. And so that's part of what the fact investigator and the mitigation specialist are working to do.
Okay. So, talking about the case, I think there's a lot of discrepancies in some of the time frames or the time stamps. They've pulled in the Apple Watch guy, the cell tower data. There's just a lot of stuff going on. And so you would kind of be in with that fact investigation as well. And sorry. One of the things when you first got hired and started into this role after you leaving the police is you're looking at all aspects to guarantee that everything was anything missed. So, for example, if this bias has set in and they're like, that she did it, it's over, did they look at every aspect they could? That's part of your job, is to look at, was everything covered that should have been covered? Does that make sense?
It does. The police, really, the government is really in a difficult situation. Because from the defense team, sometimes you have months or even years to dig and to find and to research and to Monday morning quarterback the actions of the government. So the police are in a challenging situation because they have to develop a case really pretty quickly in order to develop probable cause, to make an arrest, and then oftentimes their investigation doesn't go much further after that. So to your point, you brought up, you said what, cell data, Apple Watch data?
The Apple Watch data, there was like the video, a lot of the video cameras in CVS, and there's just a lot of inconsistencies with the timings and the, I'm not sure how they bounced whatever, that somebody went up and downstairs. That's confusing to me. Like, I don't know. I mean, I know outside our wheelhouse, but like that's brought up in trial. And I'm like, well, how in the world would you know that you were going up and downstairs?
So I think the best way to describe that is each side's going to have a series of experts, right? And so the government, they're going to have their own forensic analysis team. So whether it's electronic devices, blood spatter, trajectory bullets, whatever, they're going to have, the crime lab, right? We're all familiar with the crime lab, right? Mm-hmm. The government's going to have their series of experts. Well, the defense team is too. And so the fact investigator kind of plays in that role, mitigation too, but the defense team would hire a digital forensics expert to come in to say, can you analyze this data and take a look at it? Most often where I see it is cell phone data. We've heard so much that cell phones can pinpoint you to a specific location. Well, that's not completely accurate. Matter of fact, it can be way off. And so that's a good example to say the government says one thing, the defense team says another. All of this has to be considered, and it gets argued in court. So, the prosecution's going to call their experts to come in and say, we analyze the cell data in this way. And the defense team is going to bring in their own expert to say, we don't see it that way. We see it this way. And as you said a second ago, I'd hate to be a juror in some of these cases, including this Clancy case, because that's what they're being faced with. The government says one thing, the defense is saying another, and the jury has to figure out who they believe.
Well, it's interesting because, given your career, if the government's telling you this, you're just like, oh, okay, they're honorable. That's what you want, and that's what they know. But then when you sit and think of all these other inconsistencies, it's still, then you do that in the back of your mind, it has to be beyond a reasonable doubt. And you're just like, there's so many inconsistencies right now. It's probably a solid case. She's not denying that she killed the kids, but then there's so many inconsistencies. Like, well, if she wasn't in her right mind, there's fake confessions every day. There's a lot of really strange stuff that if you don't really know what you're doing and somebody tells you when you wake up that you did it, I guess you not have been okay. So from a nursing perspective, when looking at this information about, the internet searches about suicide methods, detox programs, ketamine therapy, and things like that, the suicide attempt, she's a nurse. She knows exactly where the carotid artery is. I cannot believe there would be an internet search saying, where's the carotid artery? How do you cut the carotid? Like that? No, that's beyond. It just that to me is a red flag as a nurse. Her body temperature being 82 degrees outside the house in the ice is a red flag. I believe it was hyoid bone, was broken. This chick ain't talking. And so for the police or Patrick or whoever said that she said she killed her children, this chick wasn't conscious. As a nurse, I'm thinking there's no way in the world. And so those are big red flags to me that I'm like, she probably could have done it. I don't know, but there's just, that doesn't make sense. Those are reasons to question Well, her body temperature was 82 degrees. That's not compatible with anything, really. Her neck was her thyroid was broken or whatever. Her wrists were slashed. She was bleeding out. I just find that very hard to believe that she looked up at her husband and was like, yeah, I killed my kids, without some other investigation. So
now you're starting to get into the fun part of us talking here tonight, because the truth of it is that society is hardwired to give the trust to the police. At least they were. I mean, right now is a very, very scary, changing, moving pendulum to say, is that accurate or not? But, society is pretty well hardwired to believe the police. And that's difficult, right? Because the police are saying this happened, and therefore the jury believes this happened. Why? Because the police say it happened. We are so glad to have Ugly Tint as a sponsor to the show. My longtime friend Kenny Dietrich is a subject matter expert in modern survival, bushcrafting, and preparedness. As he challenges us on the show, be prepared for the disaster most likely to happen to you. But let me tell you, Ugly Tint is so much more than just disaster preparedness. You need to check out the website at uglytent.com. That's UGLYTENT.com for a complete list of their products, their classes, and all the services that Kenny offers. There's a lot that I think you'll find interesting at uglytent.com. Again, just a neat place to go. So whether it's for camping, maybe it's a hike, maybe it's just trying to be in the outdoors for a little bit, uglytent.com is filled with the products and the services that you want. Not to mention you have a true expert as a resource for you. Listen, while you're there, use the promo code JUDE, that's lowercase JUDE, and that code will get you 10% off your total purchase. That's a pretty good deal for some really cool stuff. Anyway, check out Kenny at uglytent.com.
But then in the police's defense, if the husband's saying she did this, it looks like she did this, the crime scene appears to be that way, you would roll that way. I get it.
You can develop enough reasonable suspicion and then probable cause to bring the charges because the evidence does look that way. And whether it's fair or not, our system is set up to say, well, once you have that probable cause, then you can make the charges. And oftentimes that person who's been charged, well, their life is forever altered at this point. And then we also know there's a lot of investigation that still has to come into this thing.
Yeah.
Right. And so it's a really, really, really difficult balance for law enforcement to find. How do I do a complete enough investigation? I don't know that you ever would get to a point.
It's not tight.
It's almost infinite, right? So how would you ever get there? And so you get to a point to say, we can make the charges. And unfortunately, oftentimes they we'll let court figure it out. Well, that's often not fair to the defendant, right?
Right.
Now, at the same time, you're bringing up some of, I guess, the conspiracies that are being
on social media,
led into this case. And so, those are real, and you have to consider those things. And at some point, you have to come back to say, at that body temp, which, by the way, the defense team will have an expert, right? The government has their expert, the medical examiner who did the autopsy. But the defense team will also have their expert that will come in and say, I've been doing this for 145 years, and there is no way that person was talking at that body temp. And so, again, the jury is faced with this information to say, who do I believe? And then you get into all the stuff about the lookalikes and the new wife looks the same and the comments of, I did it because I saw myself doing it. Well, and, that stuff seems so far out in left field to the person to the potential juror. even to us who were one-sided on criminal justice for the first part of our career.
Yeah.
It seems so far out in left field to say, what?
To me, I think you're clouded on 13 different medications. You got a baby monitor probably in your ear. You got a new mistress that looks just like you. You have no idea what planet you're on, and you're seeing this happen.
And so
I get it.
At that point, it becomes plausible, right? It is possible that happened. And that's the defense team's strategy, is to get the jury to say, that's possible.
Yeah.
Right. So when they get back in their room and they have their confidential deliberations, they're all going to sit around. It's like, did you see the new wife and what she looked like? She looked like the other wife.
Yeah.
And that's success.
Yeah.
That's success, right? Because the defense team has said they look the same.
Yeah. It's creepy.
Yeah. And so anyway, that's a successful move from the defense team, is to create that strategy where they get back there to say, hang on a second. This may not be what is presented to us. So at any rate, as you're looking for your next question, this is the part where the fact investigator is going out there, getting the open records request, the full records, not just what the government gives, the full records, to say, let's look at everything that's in here. Again, the mitigation specialist coming in to talk about the person as a human, and then really building the case strategy around what all these things say. I'll just say this, as a criminal defense investigator, the case is almost always, and I'm using almost only because I don't want to say always, the case is almost always different than what the investigation says, the citation says, and the grand jury testimony says. The case is almost always different than that. There's always other facts, other circumstances, other pieces of evidence, other things that must be considered to every case, especially these complex homicide murder cases.
Yeah.
Especially those.
I think that's the biggest thing for me, is I just really truly thought, and I guess maybe because as a nurse, what's documented is what it is. And so I always thought it was like, good luck to you, buddy. Here's the evidence. Good luck defending it or whatever. And it for you to be in this type of career, I've just seen, no, it's not like that. It's very, very strange. It's not at all what I thought. But as far as this case, I think it's going to completely change. I think this is a big moment, a pinnacle, because for so long, there's been talk about this mental health. You see, I don't know. I think it's going to change a lot of the open doors. It's going to make people accountable. You have all these people jumping in this field to be counselors and stuff like that. The electronic medical record was designed and they want everybody to collaborate and they want everybody to be able to talk. And so, I ran into this myself, that I was on a certain medication. They prescribed a prednisone to me, wanted me to make sure I took it all, but didn't tell me it causes nosebleeds, until I looked it up. It's just interesting that somebody can get through that much people all around them, and yet nobody, how did she fall through the cracks? It's really, really sad. So I think, to me, it's going to change the way mental health and medical care moves forward. I think there'll be some legislature, that's going to have to change. And I think it's going to make people more accountable. To watch, some of these clips of the psychiatrists or the mental health counselors, it blows my mind. It truly does. Yeah,
I think that's a whole other episode we could get into of how this is going to change the medical field. Now, from the criminal field, we should also mention a mental health defense does not on its own negate criminal responsibility. So, and again, I'm not an attorney, and that's for the attorneys to fight in court, and there'll be somebody that can provide us insight, and that's great. But a mental health defense or a mental health does not automatically negate criminal responsibility, meaning you can still be held criminally liable even though you're in a mental health episode or suffering or whatever is happening. So that's super important. broadly speaking about, law enforcement is struggling at the moment to maintain and to build public trust. And I do not envy them at all for that. And then you have, we don't have to squirrel into flock cameras, but that's the other thing that's here is what's the government looking at? And so you're seeing all these cases where law enforcement are improperly using flock cameras for surveillance. We're also not hearing the probably thousands of successful ways that they're using.
Right.
We're just hearing some of those negative things. But the point I'm trying to make is all of those things erode the public trust that law enforcement has spent generations having and enjoying from.
Yeah.
And when you get into criminal defense work, you start to see that. Now, there's some agencies that I will get their cases from. They're incredible cases. They're great. They're really well worked. And it would also not surprise me to have serious felonies or even murder cases that are simply just a couple of paragraphs long. And you're thinking, my God, how could this guy get indicted on a couple paragraphs?
Yeah.
But that's what comes in from time to time is just shoddy work that you're thinking this person's life just about ruined.
Right.
Which gets back to the biases and gets back to all these things we've been talking about to say you can't always just take what that government says. So what I think will happen out of this is a continued greater scrutiny into the investigative aspect that law enforcement provides to these cases.
Okay. Okay. I got so enthralled at what you were saying. I'm like, oh, I'm supposed to be reading. Okay. So the biggest thing, I know it's caused, there's a lot of, the sad thing is that everybody has lost here. You've lost 3 children. The grandparents clearly loved Lindsay, on both sides. They both testified on her behalf. It's very unfortunate. I don't know how I want to go with that. As far as, the closing arguments, I guess, come up next week or so, I think it is.
Should be any time, yeah.
I think the defense rested yesterday. I'm curious what this quick stopping of the trial kind of went. I've heard some crazy shit going on right now that Patrick's missing, but
So good point. I think the government opens with opening statements, then the defense team. The prosecution puts on their case. The defense then puts on theirs. And then the defense gives closing arguments first, giving the government the opportunity to have the last word. And so when you talk about, well, my words, jury manipulation, because that's a lot of what this is. It's your last chance to compel the jury to believe your side of it. The government gets the last word. And so it's time, all the big drama and the big show, this is the time for it. So the defense team's going to open, and it's basically I don't want to call it a mini trial. That's overstating it, but it's the defense's time to tell a compelling story, and they have to do it so good that it overreaches the government, who gets the last word in this. Yeah. And so the government's going to come in with all the heartstrings, show all the pictures.
Speaking of the the heartstrings and pictures, what do you think about the prosecution attorney wearing all the bows? I mean, do you think that's unprofessional?
Why
would you pick and I mean, I realize if somebody did something to you, I'd be like, get them, or whatever. But I'm sitting there thinking, you have to be professional.
My first response is, does she wear bows every other day, every other case? Is that part of her normal thing? If it is, then it's just ironic.
It's just her.
It's just a coincidence. But if she's not, and I don't know the legal groundwork for this, if it's not, to me, that's a little bit of a stretch. And my perspective, only my opinion, and it's not worth the recording that we're doing here, is I've gotten into this because I think a fair path through the criminal justice system is what the justice system is intended to do. And I look at stuff like that to say, then those are things, actions that the government is taking to try to influence the jury on their side.
Outside of the facts
outside of actually trying the case.
It's malintent.
I think you can make a real case for that.
I thought it was pretty tacky, personally.
Yeah, it's not my way of doing things, right? We've talked about this all the time, that I'm pretty straightforward and give me your best shot and I'll give you my best shot and let's see what happens with it, you know?
Yeah.
But that's not the way that the justice system works and court works. And so now I also think that could be an appellate issue.
Really?
But again, I'm not an attorney, so I have to stop short of that to say, if she's found guilty and one of the jurors come back and said, oh my God, I love the bows in her hair. And it just made me think of those little girls every single day when I saw the prosecutor with the bow. So to hell with Miss Clancy. That's not based on the facts of the case. And so,
I didn't think about that.
Yeah. So to me, it seems like that could create a greater issue down the road. And again, I know you're tired of hearing it, but I'm not an attorney, so I can't say that for sure. It's just my opinion of it.
So what do you think? How do you think this is going to go? Like, just this is for entertainment only.
Yeah. So
what do you think?
I have limited knowledge. I'll give you all my disclaimers. I have limited knowledge. There's enough that has come out. If all the social media posts that we have read are truly what's come out in court, right? The medications, the timelines, the body temperature, the husband's actions, the mistress. I think we only hit about half of them.
Yeah.
If all of those things are true, then I think she has a chance at acquittal, albeit very little. I don't think there's a jury that exists. If there's a single mother on the jury, she has no chance at a complete acquittal, right? Because a mother is going to hold another mother to the highest standards to say, you don't kill your kids. I don't care what you're doing. I don't care what you're on. I don't care who you talk to. I don't care what you did last Tuesday. You don't kill your kids. You're guilty. So I think overcoming that mother barrier will be really tough. However, when you start to introduce all these other things to it, then I certainly think it's very, very possible that a much lower ultimate charge, again, I don't know what Massachusetts has for their statutes, but, like for us, we may have, instead of murder, it's reckless homicide. And that's quite a bit different, and it changes the sentencing guidelines, and it changes the amount of time that they have to serve and when you can get parole. And so all these different options come out of it. So I'm rambling a bit to say, what do I think will happen? I think a much lower charge will be the end result, unless something weird just happens with this husband or something comes out. Right?
I wonder if he is missing. I don't know. I haven't found anything. I've heard that.
Was it his attorney that showed up in court last week? Who was the TV made a big deal about, or social media made a big deal about this person showed up in court?
Oh, it's Reddington's son is an attorney, and he's the one doing all the fact investigating, I think, too. But it's the chick.
It was a lady.
She's a private investigator. She does what you do. She had her own show on Netflix on Jury 4. Jury 4. And it's the guy that got convicted 4 times for, I think, killing. But I'll look her up here.
I thought she was an attorney. So
she's a private investigator, but she's a very good one.
But we don't know if she's part of this current defense team.
She was on the second row,
right,
listening in.
But we don't know if she's part of this defense team.
Correct. So
So what could she be? She could be part of somebody else's defense team, or let's say the husband has already hired an attorney, and he's putting up a defense. Well, she could be in court listening to testimony.
I don't know if she was in there. It caused drama because everybody knew exactly who she was. So hang on. I've got her name here. I'm trying to find her name. It's like it's not. I keep wanting to think it's Scapetta, but it's not.
Yeah, I know what you're trying to say.
It was jury. I think Jury 4 or something like that. It was a show.
Well, it'll be interesting. What do you think will happen out of it?
Oh. Well, I think, I guess I don't understand their options. So for me, there is reasonable doubt. So if it's what we are told on Law and Order that it has to be beyond a reasonable doubt, I have reasonable doubt. I have reasonable doubt. There's a lot of things that don't add up, that don't make sense.
Yeah.
So if that's the case, and that's the way the justice system is designed to do, is if you don't feel that way, then it's a not guilty. And so to me, I don't think she's guilty, but also I don't think she did it.
So there'll be
period. I don't think she did it.
Now you have the confession, right? And that's a whole other thing to say. Confessions can be coerced, and confessions can be, I mean, there are study after study after study on the coercion of confessions and whether that's acceptable or not. So again, the biases of society are to say, you said you did it. Yeah, but there's a lot. A lot packed into confession coercion.
So we covered kind of the logistics from a PI perspective, from the gossip section of Stacy. Personally, I think she was really clouded. I think there was some premeditation on the mistress and the husband's part.
Yeah.
I think she was heavily medicated, either without her knowledge. I think some of the commanding voices were her husband, and I think he. The heart rate thing on the monitor is crazy. You're not killing your kids with a heart rate of 57 unless you're a freaking demon, I guess. But I think she got locked in her bedroom. And when she realized she couldn't get to her kids, she decided she was going to go out that window. And then he pulled up and had oh shit moment. She's still alive.
Yeah.
Because that's an easy closure. Oh, she did it.
And before society lumps you into these left-wing conspiracists, Karens, or whatever I read the other day, you're not. You're lumping this based into the work that comes in our office and what we see. So
there's a whole lot of shit here.
So interesting. Both sides will have to agree on what instructions the jury will hear. Instructions meaning what list of charges can the jury consider. And I don't know what they are in this particular case, right? But both sides will agree to say, we're going to provide the jury with instructions on this charge, or this charge. So sometimes the jury is very limited in what they can choose from. For example, I'm making this up. You couldn't go from murder to disorderly conduct because they weren't given the option to charge her with disorderly conduct.
Supposedly, so on this, then when we kind of like AI Googled looking up stuff, it just says that there's two possible outcomes and what each means. It could be convicted in the first or second degree, would be life in prison with parole eligibility only if she gets the second degree conviction. Or she could be not criminally responsible. So I don't know if that's truly what their instructions are going to be. This is just kind of what AI pulled out for us.
So based on that, I would say, and again, neither one of us know Massachusetts. I would say there's a murder instruction, a first degree instruction, a second degree instruction. If there's a mental health instruction.
This one said if she's not criminally responsible, she gets committed to a state psychiatric with periodic review hearings, but not released. Right.
So there's going to be criminal code that is guiding the trial, right?
Okay.
And the point I'm making is to say the jury will be given a list of options they can choose from. They can't choose from something over here. They're going to have to choose from these particular options.
So does it mean that because this is the options that she can't have an acquittal? Like the acquittal is the most brief, that would be she's not criminally responsible by reason of insanity and she has to go to a mental health facility? Or is there a...
My experience would tell you there's always the not guilty. That's the point of going to trial.
Oh, okay.
Right.
I just was misunderstanding.
So I'm going to put my own asterisks there to say, I can't speak to that. But the point of going to trial is guilty or not guilty. And if you're guilty, then you have tiers or levels or different varying levels that may be. But you always have the not guilty.
Well, so that's what I was seeing on some of the social media where the pendulum's swinging back. It's like, gosh, she pled. She's not denying she did it, which the defense isn't either. It's just there's just enough holes. Like, to me, it's all about proving beyond a reasonable doubt. That's all it is to me. That's where if I was a juror, I stick with that. Is did the state, whoever, the Commonwealth, prove it beyond a reasonable doubt? No, I don't think so. So at that point, it's a not guilty. But that's what I'm hearing on social media is like, well, she did it. She's not saying she didn't do it. So which charge are you going to go with? And I'm thinking, well, I don't think that's how it works. But I also don't know anything about like that.
Yeah. So it would depend on those jury instructions, what they would have and what Massachusetts has on their statutes to say these are the options that are there. I don't know if that's what was introduced in court by the defense team to say, yeah, we agree she killed him. It doesn't seem like it when you listen to the conspiracy theories and these other list of things. But now if that's what they did, then she's going to be found guilty of something, right? Because they've already, if the defense team has given that up, and I don't know that they would, given all these other things they're introducing, but if the defense team has given that up, then she's going to be convicted of something. It's just,
but if they do that, does that help build a case for appellate?
No, I don't think so. There's a lot of different reasons to get there.
Okay. And so let's talk about that, because we've done it on another podcast. So, for example, when everybody's like, well, did you say you did it? Stuff like that. That's where sometimes the plea deals come in, even though you're not guilty. They take a plea deal because it's shorter time. Which this has nothing to do with this case. It just made me think of that. Right. I've heard multiple friends I work with or someone say, I'd never plead guilty to a case that, if I didn't do it, I'd never plead guilty. Well,
yeah.
Maybe.
I used to say that too until I got in it, and that's not how it works. And so for Clancy, the jury will be given a set of instructions, and they'll have to choose from that set of instructions what they wish to assign as an outcome to the case. And that gets into the amount of sentencing and the different options. I mean, I think what we're trying to say is this is just not a black and white thing. Go to trial and you're found guilty or not. It is muddy waters, and intentionally muddy waters. And muddy waters is good because it helps ensure our rights, and it helps bring this fairness that we keep talking about, right? So it'll be interesting to see what happens with it. And to your point about the leverage that the government has, and our listeners may or may not believe this, but the options are you can take this to trial and maybe get 50 years or life without parole. Sure. Because you're charged with that level of crime, and that's the maximum punishment. By the way, we're going to ask for the maximum punishment if you don't take the deal. Or you could take this deal, which is way down here on responsibility. Let's say it's 10 years, nonviolent, which in Kentucky means you only have to serve 20% of the time, which is 2 years. You've already been in jail 2 years. Take the deal, plead guilty. But if you don't take it, I'm going to ask for the maximum from the jury, which is 50 years or life without parole or life, whatever it is.
What would you take?
That's exactly right. And so once you see that leverage that's put on there, the defendant, whether you support him or not, I'm not asking for that. The defendant has this incredible pressure, diamond-making pressure.
That's a great way to put it.
It is, yeah, to say. And so, then you start talking about, well, how old are you? What's your quality of life? Do you have a chance at going home? What's your chances of parole? All these different things.
Yeah.
And I've had cases that I thought that the person should not take the deal. You have a really good case. But that diamond creating pressure is so intense that a longer sentence is an automatic, because they're going to die, because they're of age, right? And so they take the deal. So,
and I don't think people know that. Like that's what's been the biggest eye opener to us, is because I thought, hell freeze, I'm not taking a deal. And I'm like, no. If I went to see my grandkids and they offered me 4 years or 50, what are you going to do? I mean,
on this side, after working in this area for a long time, it is very easily understandable how a defendant would plead guilty to something that they're not guilty for. Because you start looking at, I can manage my life for the next year, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years even. I can manage that because I will come home to my family.
Yeah.
Or I can spend the rest of my life behind bars.
Yeah.
And so it's a definite thing. Now, the interesting part, once you plead guilty, you take that plea, you lose your right to appeal. And so the investigation's over, the case is over, you're going to serve it out at that point. And so that's tough. So as we talked about appellate issues, if she's found guilty, she'll have a host of reasons that they can file appeals, and it'll be fought in court and fought in court and fought in court. Right. Even these conspiracy theories will come back up.
Yeah.
But if she took the plea deal,
it's over.
It's over.
Huh. Interesting.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I think that takes care of it. We're going to post this, and We want to know your comments. So why don't you on our page or whatever on Facebook, give us your comments, give us your thoughts. We want to have a conversation.
Yeah, that's right.
Thanks a lot, Mr. Jude.
Yeah, that's a good time. Yes.
Detective.
Listen, on behalf of Jude, the podcast, we appreciate every like, share, listen, and download. It's a lot of fun. A lot of fun to have these conversations. We appreciate it. And we'll see you on the next one.
Have a good night.